Welcome back, painting friends. Today we're going to paint a picture of a pumpkin with a witch's hat. Colors you're going to need are teal, black, white, orange, yellow, purple, green, and brown. I always keep my favorite 4 brushes at the studio, my 1-inch flat brush, my 10-6, and 1 round brush. Don't forget to have a cup of water and a rag for keeping those brushes clean. So let's get started. I'm going to start off by taking my number 10 round brush with some teal paint. I'm just going to paint a big, huge oval, okay? And then I could switch over to my 1-inch flat brush to fill that oval in with teal paint. I'm going to go in with some white paint right in the center and kind of lighten the center up. And then I'm going to drop some teal on this outside edge. And then I'm going to grab some black and put it on the very edge. I'm looking to get like a vignette kind of look to this canvas. So I want it to be lightest in the middle and kind of getting darker as it goes out. So I'm just going to kind of take my brush and start to go around this oval. And I'm going to start to pick up some of those blacks and really start to blend those in. I am going to switch back to my number 10 round brush. Just for these edges, I really like the way that my brush looks, my number 10 round brush, more so than my 1-inch flat brush. I think we could just get a nicer, neater oval. And you can really just kind of mess with this until you're happy with it. And you can make the center lighter, you can make the edges darker. Just kind of play with it until you have your vignette where you want it. And then we're going to let this dry and lay out that pumpkin and that witch's hat. With a dry background, I'm now going to lay out my pumpkins. So I'm going to start with orange paint. And right here in the center, when I make pumpkins, I like to start them out like as a football shape, like an almond maybe. I can just go ahead and paint that whole space in orange. And then with each section, I like to take some yellow and just kind of put it at the top, just to lighten it up a little bit, but still kind of following the curved lines of that pumpkin down, and even some white on the outer edges of that almond shaped. Then I like to take the smallest amount of purple right down here at the bottom. And brush that up. It makes a really great muted orange color. And then if you need to, you can add a little bit more orange to the center if you need to kind of blend it in, or you can even add a little bit more yellow up at the top. But this is just where you get to kind of play and have fun with your pumpkin and have fun kind of mixing those colors in. So from there, I will continue to start at the top and end right here at the tip right here. I'm just going to start by making like a little bump down and around. And I could do that a couple more times if I want to, but I'm always kind of starting really close to that top part and kind of ending where they connect. So I am going to finish up all of my ribs of my pumpkin. And then we're going to add that witch's hat on. I mean, that is a beautiful looking pumpkin right there. So before we move on to the next part, I am going to take a little bit of purple paint. I'm going to water it down, make it a little bit thinner, and use my number 6 round brush. And what I'm going to do is just kind of go along where these ribs of my pumpkin were very lightly. I'm just taking my number 6 round brush. I'm letting the brush barely touch the canvas. I'm going to add a little bit on this very edge right here. And then I'm going to take just a little bit of that purple and I'm just going to make a couple of lines. Again, following the curve of my pumpkin. Now these lines, we don't want them to be like even, symmetrical. We don't want them all to be the same length and how many are on each rib. Just kind of let it organically happen. These are pumpkins. They grow in a field. They don't need to be perfect. But I will say, I do love that. So let's move on to our witch's hat. So I'm going to grab my number 10 round brush with some black paint. And we're going to kind of cover up the top of our pumpkin a little bit. But if you want to tilt your hat to the side or whatever, you can do that. So I'm going to start up here and I'm going to just make a small little hook. Go all the way up to the top of my canvas. From there, I'm going to kind of come back down. Then I'm going to start back up here again, and I'm going to have this line come down this way. Now, the bottom rim of my witch's hat is going to be a little wavy. So I'm going to start kind of a point right here. And I'm just going to kind of wave it across the top of my pumpkin. Going to a point at this other side. Now these points are going to be pretty skinny at the tip, but then they're going to kind of come up to the hat. I might widen out my hat a little bit. And then we're just going to paint this whole hat in black. Let's let our hat dry. When we come back, we will add in our flowers. So before we go in and add our flowers, we're going to add a couple of little lines. So I'm going to take some white and mix it with my purple. My purples are really dark purple on my palette. and I want a little bit of a lighter purple. So I'm just taking a little bit of white and mixing it in my purple to lighten it up just a little bit. And I'm going to take that purple and just kind of make some curved lines. I'm gonna outline this whole right hand side real quick. And then I'm gonna take that, I'm just gonna make some curved lines that kind of come off of it. I'm going to add a little bit of purple highlight over on this side also. Smaller little lines. I'm going to add just a couple little lines on the edge of the hat. This is just going to be our little highlight. All right, let's talk about our flowers. I'm going to start off, I'm going to zoom us in a little bit so we're just focused on the hat, and then we're going to add our flowers. I'm going to start off with a black and brown mix. I want this to be a really, really, really dark brown. And I also want it to be a little bit watery so it goes on really nice and easy. I'm going to make some little viney lines. So with my number 6 round brush, and you can always switch to a number 10 round brush, a number 1 round brush if you want. If you want to get thinner lines, that's totally up to you. I really like to use just the very tip of my brush. I think it works pretty good. But I'm going to start kind of out away from my hat and just kind of bring some of these lines in. These are just going to be kind of some gnarly, thick lines kind of coming through here. And I'm going to do this on both sides of my hat. And the goal is to have several of them kind of coming in the same area. And then I'm going to take a little bit of green and mix it with that brown. I'm going for a really dark green color. And I'm just going to take a couple of little dark green spots and put it on these just kind of randomly. And then sometimes when I make circles, I like to grab the back of a pencil because it is a great circle shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab purple and I'm going to make like 4 little dots with purple and then 1 in the center with yellow. And that yellow is going to kind of mix with that purple a little bit. And I can put these anywhere I want. So I'll fill those in a minute. I'm going to show you my next kind of flower real quick though. I'm also going to take my finger, and when I use my finger, watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to put purple and white on there. See that? Both colors. And I'm going to set those down. In a circle. And then again, use yellow right in the center of that. It'll just kind of mix a little bit. So those are my 2 main types of flowers I'm going to put in here. But I'm also going to grab the back of my brush and add just a couple of white spots in through here also. So let's get these flowers done and we'll finish up with our big flower. All right, let's move on to our flower. So I'm going to start with my number 10 round brush. I lied, this is my number 6. And I'm just going to kind of create like a circle right here so I kind of know where I'm going to. And I'm just going to set my paintbrush down and just kind of pull it in. So set it down and pull it in. And we're going to go all the way around. Okay, then I'm going to go back in with yellow and do the same thing. I'm just going right over top of that white with my yellow, pulling those colors in. I'm then going to go in with a little bit of orange and put like a spot of orange on the tip of each of these. And then I'm just going to brush that color back through. I'm going to take a little bit of yellow and just go kind of right over the top of the center of these just to make sure that the tips of these are yellowy. I really kind of like how some of that purple mixed in. I'm going to take brown and put it right here smack dab in the middle. A nice big circle there. And use the back of that pencil again. Add little black dots in there. I'm going to grab brown and do one more circle inside of here. I'll use the back of my brush to give it just a couple of little white highlights in there. And I'm going to take my number 6 round brush with some black paint. I'm going to make a couple of lines going out into my flower. Last but not least, I'm going to add some white highlights. I'm going to put a small white highlight at the tippy top of my hat. I put a couple of little white highlights on the pumpkin. And then also on the tip of some of my petals. I don't have to do all the petals, but I want to make sure that some of them have a little bit of a white highlight to them. And there we have it. We've got a great witch's hat with a pumpkin underneath. To finish this out, I am going to take my number 1, I keep lying today with my paintbrushes. my 1-inch flat brush, and I'm just going to do a couple of little left to right lines in black paint underneath my pumpkin, but it doesn't look like it's totally floating. I'll take those all the way down, still being able to see some of the teal through it. And remember, when you're finished, you need to find a color that's going to show up on your canvas and sign your name. I always put my initials in the bottom right corner. Make sure that you take a picture of what you're painting at home and post it to my Facebook page, Painting with a Purpose. Make sure that you like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Painting with a Purpose, so you are kept up to date on all of my tutorials. And remember, as always, stay kind, stay creative, and stay safe. Have a great day, friends. Bye now.